Could medical cannabis be bad for heart patients? By Dennis Thompson. The quick answer is no, but let's get to the story. Medical cannabis might ease chronic pain, but it also increases a patient's risk of a dangerous abnormal heart rhythm, a new study says. The study was recently published in the European Heart Journal using nationwide Danish registers, patients with chronic pain initiating and with chronic pain patients with chronic pain initiating first-time treatment with medical cannabis were compared to a 5-time larger group of patients with chronic pain who did not use medical cannabis. The cohorts were matched for age, sex, and use of pain medication. However, the groups were of unequal size. Unequal group size can affect the statistical power of a study and the precision of its estimates. In this case, the results should be considered less precise. Patients using medical cannabis had a 0.8% absolute risk of being diagnosed with a heart arrhythmia. Patients not using medical cannabis had a 0.4 absolute risk of being diagnosed with a heart arrhythmia. As referenced, the absolute risk of dying in a car accident is about the same, yet we all still drive. I don't think this research should make patients with chronic pain refrain from trying medical cannabis if other treatment has been inadequate, said researcher Dr. Anders Holt, a cardiologist at the Copenhagen University Hospital in Denmark. Holt and his colleagues performed the study to better inform physicians prescribing cannabis. They believe this is the first nationwide study on medical cannabis use and heart disease in Denmark. In this study, the results were not statistically significant enough to make a claim that heart disease of any kind was associated with medical cannabis use. What's more, drugs like NSAIDs, seizure medication, and opiates have also demonstrated an increased risk of arrhythmias, yet that information was not included in the story. THC is a vasodilator. As a result, heart rate may transiently increase. Overall blood pressure is lowered. After several decades of medical cannabis use in the US, we have yet to see evidence of heart disease. We need much more research in this area, said Holt, before concluding anything. Results from the study should be replicated in other countries and settings. I'm not sure why media institutions like US News and World Report problems that are not there. Could it be that they cannot accept that they were lied to by their own government during the war on drugs campaigns? Is it stubborn conservatism to believe that cannabis use is harmful? I also like to point out that the results of this research can be misunderstood without careful reading and discussion. It appears that the title of this article misrepresents the results of the study. Perhaps U.S. News and World Report has an incentive to point fingers at cannabis and not at the pharmaceutical industry. This is Dr. Jean Talleyrand with High at 9 News.
Man, I love that last statement, Dr. T. You know, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with that last statement, that they need to be pointing fingers at the pharmaceutical industry instead of pointing fingers at cannabis, because the reality is that cannabis hasn't killed anybody, but pharmaceuticals kill Americans every day.
Agreed. And with the data that we're seeing, with the results that we're seeing, it's really a shame that we're not really moving forward with this. And we continue to try to slash cannabis as an option.
Yeah, we have to, in the same discussion, and I'm sure my good doctor colleague here would agree with me, that there is life-saving pharmaceuticals, right? That there are drugs. Again, a part of the reasons why our parents are living these grand old lives is because they've been taking, blood pressure maintenance, medications, which again have sort of like a peripheral effect in keeping people healthy for longer, right? But yeah, I mean, it's I've said it a few times on the show. If you ever watch the evening news on just regular, TV, whatever the Network B, you'll see that the evening news is brought to you by this whole list of these commercials with these weird names on all these different products, and some of them are like biological these days, doctor, right? I mean, they're not just chemical active ingredients packaged into a pill. I actually have seen this thing now where everyone's like shooting their belly with this little, what is it? It's like a pen or something like that. Like, what product is that?
GLP-1s. It's the GLP-1, the new weight loss drug that Oprah is using.
Yeah.
It's the hot new. I was just at a conference with
$1 billion drug, I'll bet, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's the new blockbuster. Everybody's injecting themselves.
I thought,
yeah. So how does cannabis get such a bad rap when they have this Prevagen thing, which is something that they isolated from jellyfish? Really? What? There's a protein in jellyfish that makes you remember things better? Tell me how that works, please. Right? Anything you eat goes into your stomach, it gets digested, and it's going to somehow magically work to your brain so you remember. Thing. I don't know.
I mean, in all fairness, Dr. Mark, in all fairness, I mean, jellyfish are some of the skinniest animals on the planet.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
Can't argue that.
It's not that they're skinny, Jason. It's that when they're in their natural environment, the rest of their blubber is hard to view. It's the angle. It's being in the water.
Is that it? It's the perception, right?
Yeah.
It's that mirrored effect.
Right.
That's giving it that slender look.
They're not subject to fat shaming. They're not subject to fat shaming by their peers. So that's also a good thing for them.
It's like when you wear black, right? Right, Yarrow? It's like when you wear black.
It's slimming. I've been living that life my whole life. When we talk about pointing a finger at the pharmaceutical industry, I mean, we all know what finger that should be, right? Mm-hmm. But to Mark's point, I mean, better living through chemistry. We do have, increased life expectancy. We can't just completely bash it. The one thing I do want to say, Jason, is we like to say that cannabis has never killed anybody. But actually, post-Vapegate, that's not entirely accurate. And when I was a wee lad back in the early 2000s, and I went to Dr. Gene here for one of my first medical cannabis recommendations.
Look at that.
And I explained to him that I was going to grow my own. He looked at me and said, "Young man." And he shared with me stories of patients that had been damaged as a result of what had been put on those plants, not the plant, but what had been put on those plants. So I think it's important that when we say that cannabis has never killed anybody, the plant may have not killed anybody, but our lack of understanding around what we should and shouldn't put on that plant before we consume it or aerosolize the biomass has created harm. And so I just want to be full spectrum in the way that we explain the risk profile.
That part is true. And, I don't know. Do you remember Jane Warwick, Dr. Talleyrand? Jane Warwick, she was one of the beginning advocates in the beginning, and she
one of our doctors.
No, she was not a doctor. She was just an advocate in the beginning, but she was also as a cultivator. And I know she passed away because she developed a neurological disease, and we believe that was from the use of spraying Avid.
Yeah. Okay. So this must be the same patient. Yeah, that we've been sharing, and it wasn't my patient. It was a patient of Dr. McArea's. But yeah, there was some pesticide on there. She did have a chronic condition previously, but we think, we found lots of a high level of the pesticide during the autopsy.
What was the pesticide, Jean? Do you remember?
I don't recall. You're right.
It would have been like an Avid or a Floramite.
Yeah, it was Avid.
Things
it was
that
Avid.
Indoor cultivators were using at that time, not knowing how damaging it was.
Yeah. It's like we're just trying to kill spider mites.
An insecticide that was sprayed and she accidentally breathed it. Is that what happened?
Well, to my understanding, how Avid works is people that spray Avid, they would have to be in basically one of those chem suits or whatnot. And a lot of people, no home grower really had chem suits back then. And so just spraying it around, that could seep and attack your nervous system just from the pores seeping into your skin, from my understanding. So
I did have the cool protective suits because I've never been to Home Depot and not found.
She did have a chronic condition.
What's that, Dr. T? She did have a
Right.
chronic condition. Yes, that part is true.
Yeah,
Which made her more
officially,
susceptible to having this reaction.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right.
No, officially, the autopsy said that she died of the chronic condition, but that it was suspicious to see high levels of the pesticide in her at the
Comorbidities.
same time. So, yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
So I did have one of those cool hazmat suits, Jason, because I never found anything at Home Depot that looked so industrial that I didn't want to own and possess. So we did mask up and suit up and wear those Tyvek things when we did our foliar sprays. The misperception or lack of understanding that we had is that we believed that insecticide would dissipate out of the biomass of the plant after a couple of weeks. And we didn't have any science to support that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a crazy world, and yeah, it's just a sad situation with these pesticides, and and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we smoke cannabis, and most of these pesticides are made for agricultural products that we consume, and so consuming them in that way as opposed to lighting them up and burning them is a totally different method and creates a totally different chemical reaction process. Exactly right, Dr. Mark.
I don't think ingesting carcinogenic chemicals in any form, whether you're eating them or smoking them, is better than the other. I mean, look at what's wrong with our food and Roundup and Monsanto and all that. So, and that's not saying the food kills people, right? It's the chemical that kills people. So back to Yarrow's tangent about cannabis killing people. I don't think it was cannabis. It was in this story that rabbit hole we went down. It was the chemical, right? Mm-hmm. But what I wanted to know about the story Dr. T was reporting on is, why are they spending money to study something? So again, it's like they're looking for something wrong. And why not take that money and energy and invest in studying something that anecdotally has been proven to be helpful and prove that, right? So it's just, I agree with the initial comments about it seems like they were looking for something wrong, and for whatever reason that is.
I could tell you exactly why.
I
could tell you exactly why.
Yeah. They're looking for something wrong because U.S. News and World Report will print it. It'll make them famous and it'll get them more funding.
Well, isn't there another side to that coin too? Because the other answer to that question is the fact that there is more money in keeping people sick as opposed to creating a cure.
Yeah,
that's right. Follow the money.
They're probably somehow funded by NIDA, and NIDA's sort of mission is to National Institute of Drug Abuse to show the negative aspects.
We got